My son told me not to come to his wedding. He said I could just watch through a live stream. What he didn't say was that he'd already used my name to mortgage the only home I've ever owned. And I signed the papers because I trusted him, because I'm his mother. This isn't just a wedding story. This is what happens when the people you gave everything to quietly decide you're no longer worth inviting. And what followed, some might call it a revenge story, but it wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, it was quiet, and it changed everything. If you've ever raised a child on your own, you'll understand this. You don't just give them your time, you give them your sleep, your money, your plans, your future. I'm Lorraine Fields. I'm 67 years old, and for most of my life, my entire identity was one word: Mom. After my husband died suddenly, it was just me and my boy, Brian. He was only 6. I still remember how small his backpack looked that first day back at school after the funeral. He didn't understand what he'd lost, but I did, and I made a promise right then and there. He would never feel that kind of emptiness again. I worked days as a teacher, nights cleaning dentist offices, weekends doing odd jobs I don't care to remember. I skipped vacations, sold my jewelry, and canceled every birthday plan I ever made for myself. When Brian wanted to start a business, I co-signed. When he got into debt, I cleared it. When he met a girl from a wealthy family and said he wanted a wedding worthy of their name, I said I'd help. Not just with planning, but with funding. Because that's what mothers do, right? I didn't question it when he handed me a stack of papers one night and said, "Just sign this for the venue stuff, Mom. It's faster that way." I signed. I always signed. What I didn't know then was that I wasn't signing a vendor contract. I was signing away control of the one thing I had left, my home. But back then, I was still just a mother, still believing that love was enough, still thinking sacrifice meant something. I had no idea the invitation I was waiting for would come in the form of a Google Meet link, and that was only the beginning. I wasn't expecting much that morning. I had my coffee, my robe, and the porch light was still on from the night before. It was quiet, the kind of morning where you feel like the world hasn't decided what to do with you yet. Then my phone buzzed. It was an email from Brian. No subject, just his name. I thought maybe it was a note, something sweet before the big day. But when I opened it, all I saw was, "Hey, Mom, we've had a lot of talks with Olivia's parents. It's been tricky with the guest list. Really tight, very curated. We figured it's best if you watch the ceremony online. We've set up a live stream. Should feel the same, Lowell. Thanks for understanding." No, dear Mom. No, I'm sorry. No phone call. Just a Google Meet link. I sat there holding the mug like it was the only thing keeping me upright. Not a single tear fell. My hands didn't shake. But something inside me, it cracked. Quietly. Permanently. You ever had that moment when you realize you've been moved to the background of your own story? That's what this felt like. I'd spent decades building this life around him, and now I wasn't even worth a seat in the back row. I replied with 4 words. "Sure, enjoy your day. No anger, no guilt trip, just done." And if any of you watching this have ever gotten a message like that from someone you raised, someone you loved, you know exactly how fast the air can disappear from a room. If this is hitting close to home, just drop a quiet, "I get it" in the comments. Sometimes knowing you're not the only one is the start of healing. Later that day, I went to work like it was any other Tuesday, but something was different. I stopped pretending. That was the day I realized I wasn't part of his future anymore. I was just part of the funding. And when love becomes conditional on how useful you are, that's not family, that's business. And I had no interest in being someone's transaction ever again. That email, it didn't break me, but it did wake me up. I don't remember what I had for breakfast that morning, but I remember the envelope, plain white with a return address I didn't recognize, some regional bank I'd never dealt with. I almost tossed it. Junk mail, I thought, but something in me said, "Open it." Inside was a printed letter, formal, cold. We're following up on the status of your home equity line of credit, secured under the property at 412 Ashgrove Lane. Please complete the attached documents to finalize disbursement of funds in the amount of $280,000. I read it twice, then a third time. My name was on it, my address, my house, and I hadn't applied for anything. The world went quiet around me. No bird song, no wind, just a ringing in my ears. I felt like I was standing in someone else's life, like someone had hit record over mine and taped something cruel on top of it. I called the bank, got transferred 4 times. Finally, someone said, "Yes, ma'am, it was submitted 2 weeks ago. Application lists you as co-signer, and the primary applicant is your son, Brian Fields." That was the moment it hit me. The papers I'd signed weeks ago, the ones Brian handed me casually, saying, "Just sign for the venue stuff, it's complicated legal stuff." Those weren't vendor forms. They were mortgage documents. He'd used my house, the only place that's been mine since his father died, to secure a loan for a wedding I wasn't invited to. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just sat down on the floor of my kitchen, back against the cabinet, palms flat on the cold tile. You know that kind of silence where grief doesn't even bother knocking? It just walks in and sits beside you? That's where I was. For so long, I'd believed that if you give everything, you'll be remembered. But now I saw it. I wasn't just forgotten. I was repurposed, turned into leverage for someone else's dream without even being asked to attend. And somehow, that hurt worse than being excluded. Because it wasn't just that I didn't matter. It was that I only mattered when there was something left to take. I didn't call Brian. I didn't write. I didn't ask him why. What would he say? That I misunderstood? That he meant to tell me? I didn't need more excuses. I needed truth. And sometimes truth isn't what someone tells you. It's what they show you when they think you're not paying attention. That weekend, I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and a pot of tea I didn't finish. I wrote down everything I'd ever signed for him: student loans, car notes, business applications. I added up every check, every favor, every time I said yes when I should have at least paused. Then I made an appointment with my lawyer. Mr. Harrow had been around since my husband passed. He remembered when Brian was just a skinny kid holding my hand in the office, asking why we had to talk about wills and grown-up stuff. He looked at me kindly when I came in and said, "I need to remove my name from a loan I never agreed to." He didn't ask questions. He just nodded. And by the end of that day, we filed to freeze the disbursement, and I initiated the process to reclaim sole title on the house. My house. That evening, my phone started ringing. First Brian, then his fiancée, then someone from her family. I didn't answer. I'd spent a lifetime being available, being reachable, being responsible. Now I wanted to be quiet, because silence, I've learned, isn't weakness. It's a boundary. That night, I sat on my back porch in the dark and let the night hold me. No music, no phone, just stars, and I thought, he didn't even hesitate. He handed me those papers like I was a notary, like my trust was a tool. And for the first time in my life, I said to myself, this isn't what love looks like. Love doesn't trick. Love doesn't gamble your safety without asking. I wasn't just a mom. I was a woman with rights, and I was done being a footnote in someone else's story. That night, I didn't cry. I reclaimed something better, my voice. The next morning, I brewed coffee like always, same creaky kettle, same chipped mug. But for the first time in years, I didn't check my phone first. No news, no calls, no voice waiting to tell me what I was supposed to fix that day. I took a deep breath. It smelled like morning and something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The bank confirmed my withdrawal was official. The house was mine again. Fully, legally, unquestionably. I didn't owe Brian anything. Not money, not explanations. He tried to call 4 more times that day. Then came the texts. "Mom, please, you're making a huge deal out of this. It was just a technicality. We're losing the venue because of you." But I didn't reply, because for once, I wasn't responsible for holding everything together. That weekend, I signed up for a pottery class at the senior center. I almost canceled. I hadn't done anything for me in so long it felt selfish. But I went, and I sat at a table with 3 other women who laughed about clay getting under their nails and burned their first bowls. And no one asked me for money, or help, or forgiveness. They just saw me. I started reading again, real novels, not self-help books or articles on parenting. I took slow walks around the block, and when a neighbor waved, I waved back, not out of politeness, out of presence. It's strange how quiet freedom feels, not loud like movies make it seem. It's the silence after you stop begging to be seen. Brian never apologized, not really. He sent a long email 2 weeks later, half guilt, half excuses. I read it once, then archived it. I wasn't angry anymore, I was just done. This wasn't about revenge. This was about reclaiming something that had been mine all along. The right to choose who gets access to my heart. And slowly, bit by bit, I started building a life where I was no longer a mother on call, but a woman at peace. No drama, no declarations, just breathing again. The wedding happened. Eventually. Not at the vineyard Brian had reserved, not with the 5-figure florist or the violin quartet. They scrambled last minute and ended up having a small backyard ceremony behind Olivia's cousin's house. A folding chair kind of wedding. Just family, they said. I wasn't invited. And this time, I didn't need to be. Luke, a family friend, told me about it later. How Olivia's parents were disappointed, how the vibe felt rushed and awkward, how Brian smiled too hard and said everything was fine. I didn't feel joy at their struggle. I didn't feel satisfaction. Just distance. Like watching a show you'd once loved but had outgrown. A few weeks after that, another email arrived. Mom, I know you were hurt, but things got complicated. Maybe we can talk. Maybe we can work this out. But it was always maybe. Always if I gave more, if I tried harder. Never. I'm sorry I used you. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked out to my porch with a fresh cup of tea and watched the sky turn that soft orange pink it does in early spring. Birds hopped through the garden beds I'd finally replanted. The lavender was coming back. So was I. My life wasn't louder now, just clearer. I still get up early, still fold laundry with care, still answer calls when I want to. But I stopped picking up out of guilt. I stopped waiting to be included. And somewhere in that quiet, I found something close to joy. Some people think love is always about giving. But sometimes, the deepest kind of love is the kind you give to yourself. When you finally stop begging to be seen. I never raised my voice. I never slammed a door. But I walked away. And I never looked back. If you've made it this far, thank you. I didn't share this story for pity. I shared it because I know I'm not the only one. Maybe you've raised children who no longer see you. Maybe you've given your whole life to a family that now calls you difficult when you finally say no. Maybe, like me, you've sat alone with a cold cup of tea, wondering when love started to feel like a transaction. If any part of this story felt like your own, leave me a quiet below, or just type, I understand. No need to explain. This isn't about revenge. It's about choosing yourself. It's about drawing a line, not with anger, but with grace. And if this is your first step toward that, then I want you to know, you're not invisible. You're not alone. There's a whole world of women out here learning to reclaim themselves, quietly, powerfully, fully. So wherever you are tonight, breathe, and remember, you matter, even if they forgot, especially if they forgot.